In this lesson, we're going to learn how to retain hard edges by finishing out the joystick of our arcade machine. Alright, so we've run into another issue whenever we smooth out geometry using the Turbo Smooth modifier. The first time that we had seen it was with the buttons, and we had noticed that it smoothed out that top ridge. And we had learned how to modify its shape by moving up and down in the modifier stack. But now we have a new issue. We have a model that is losing some of the hardness or the creasing on the object based on the Turbo Smooth modifier. So what I want to do is I want to go to Editable Poly and show End Result. There are a couple of ways that I can retain a hard edge on something like this. One way would be to go into Edge Mode and create a loop around the edge that I want to be hard, or I want it to retain more of the shape. So what is happening here exactly? Well, there's an edge here at the bottom, and then there's an edge right up here at the top. Okay? And what it's doing is it's smoothing out the geometry in between and trying to average between those two edges. And actually the edge is right here, excuse me. And so it's trying to average between those two edges, and thus giving us this smooth result. So if I add an edge right here close to the bottom, it will try to retain that detail. A quick way to do this would be to use Edit, Swift Loop. Now if you don't see this modeling ribbon, you'll need to come up here to Toggle Ribbon, turn that on, and then you'll want to go to Modeling, Edit, Swift Loop. Left click at the position where you want that loop to be added. So once we left click on that, you'll notice that it begins to retain that volume. Okay, it's still very smooth. Let's go ahead and turn off Edge Mode. It's still very smooth, and it kind of gives us an edge that's a little more believable. It's not extremely sharp. Now I still want to do a little bit of modification to my object. So let's go to Editable Poly, let's go to Edge Mode, and I'm going to double click on this edge right here, and I'm going to move that up. I want it to be a little more round toward the top. Let's also take this loop right here, and I'm actually going to hit Control and Backspace. What that's going to do is it's going to remove the edge with its vertices and get rid of it out of my model. Sometimes we have to do that to get the exact shape that we want. And I think I'm also going to do it on this edge as well. So hold Control and Backspace. Now if you don't see that edge being selected, that's because we're looking at the cage. So what I can do is I can turn off that Show End Result, and you'll see what it looks like at that Editable Poly level. So double click on that edge, Control, Backspace. So now we have this. Let's go to Turbo Smooth, and there we go. That gives us a joystick that's a little more believable. Now we could also come in and we can continue to make some modifications to this if we really wanted to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Polygon Mode, and I'm going to select these top polygons. Let's go to our Scale tool, and I'm going to scale that in the X and Y, just kind of make that a little broader. And let's also show End Result on that. And there we go. So there we have the joystick. Now let's go ahead and create the base of that joystick. This can be done by going into our Geometry, Standard Primitives, and Cylinder. Let's go ahead and drag out the base of that and make it really small. So left click, drag that base out, release the left mouse button, get the height, and then left click again. Let's go ahead and type in our radius. Let's do a radius of 2. Let's also do a height of 0.25. And we'll leave our height, cap, and sides the exact same. So 118 on those. Let's also go into our rotation tool, and let's change the rotation value in our X. Let's set that to 0, and then we'll move that underneath the joystick. Okay. Now one way that we can really center this up is to select that cylinder, and then we'll go into a hierarchy. Actually, no, let's not do hierarchy. Let's go to our line tool right up here, and with that activated, let's click on the joystick. Now it's going to bring up this align selection, and it's going to give us some options. Do we want to align it along the X, Y, and Z position? Yes, I want it to be all three. Now I also have how I want them to line up, by the pivot or by the center. Both of these objects will have their pivot point set at the center, but we can always make sure just by going center to center. Now you'll notice how that changes things. Let's go back to pivot here. Now that we have that set, let's simply hit OK, and that we know is centered up and aligned on our object. So now with this, let's go ahead and convert it to editable poly. I'm going to go to polygon mode. I'm going to go up underneath that object, select that bottom polygon, and delete it out. Let's turn polygon mode off. Let's go back up to the top here. And let's go to polygon mode, select this polygon, and then what we'll do is we'll inset this, and we'll go to 1 on that. Hit OK. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude this, and I'm going to extrude it down in a negative direction. Let's go ahead and set this to 0.1, or negative 0.1, excuse me, and then hit OK on that. All right, perfect. Now I want to add just a little bit more to my joystick, okay, on this. So I'm going to raise that up a little bit, and I'm going to go to Editable Poly. Let's select the polygon that's on the bottom of this. So if this helps, you can always hit F3, and that will go to wireframe, and then you can try to select the polygon that way. Notice that if I select it right across the bottom, okay, it has selected that. Now what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and use Inset, and Inset is going to create a polygon on the inside of another. Let's hit F3 to go back to our wireframe just to kind of see what's going on here. Notice that the inset amount is too much. I always like to set it to 0 and then bump that up based on what I see here. So let's go ahead and just do 0.15. Hit OK on that. And then from here, what I'll do is go ahead and extrude. So by extruding that, okay, I'm creating kind of the piece that goes along with that. And that should go down into that piece. So let's go ahead and type in 1, hit OK. And then you'll notice at the bottom it's rounded off again. I don't need that to be rounded off. I could go ahead and add an edge, but I could also delete that bottom. And notice how that gets really, really hard there. So it's retaining that shape. Okay, and that's perfectly fine. It's not going to be seen, so it's okay to go ahead and delete that polygon off. Alright, so there we have our joystick. Let's go ahead and smooth out the base of that joystick. So we're going to use Turbo Smooth, so type in TU, and actually you might need to do it a little faster, so TU really quickly, and Turbo Smooth will show up there. Let's go ahead and bump up our iterations to 2, and you'll notice that it becomes very flat. So what we need to do is we need to retain that volume. To do that, remember, what we need to do is add in some loops. So this can be done using the Swift Loop tool. Okay, this is just one way. I'm going to go ahead and add a loop right here. So left click, let's go out to the outside edge, and then we'll also add one right here. So adding these loops close to the original edges will make sure that these edges are a little soft, but still harder than what they were before. Let's also do the same thing on the inside. So you may have to orbit around using the Alt left or middle mouse button, and you may have to zoom in kind of close. All right, so that looks pretty good. Now what we'll do is we'll right click to end the Swift Loop. Let's go ahead and go back to Turbo Smooth, and there you go. So now we have a nice hard edge there on that joystick. Let's go ahead and take both of those, and I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to drag that over right here to the center. Let's go ahead and make it an instance just in case we need to make any changes later on. So there we have the joysticks and the buttons of our arcade machine. Now what I want to do in the next lesson is I want to go ahead and just finish out the arcade machine as far as the modeling goes. So we're going to go ahead and take care of our glass piece next, and we'll get that all into position, and we'll get everything ready for unwrapping the materials or unwrapping the UVs for our materials, and we'll get started with that next.